They say hindsight is 20/20ths, and I guess it's true, though it doesn't help when you're lying awake at 2 a.m. wondering how you missed all the signs. I should have noticed it sooner. The way she pulled her hand back faster when I reached for it at the store, the way she started using a different perfume, the kind that smelled expensive and unfamiliar, the late nights at work, the extra shifts at the clinic, the time she said, "I'm just tired." When I leaned in for a kiss, I chalked it up to stress. We'd been together for 7 years, and I thought that meant something. I'm R and I work in IT at a mid-sized software company, not flashy, but stable. I'm the kind of guy who fixes your Wi-Fi and reminds you to back up your photos. I met Kelly at a friend's housewarming party. She was laughing at something on her phone and dropped it right into the guacamole. We both reached in to save it at the same time, and well, that was the start of us. It was simple from the beginning. We liked the same dumb comedies. We both hated olives. We agreed on pineapple on pizza. It wasn't a movie romance, but it was real, or I thought it was. The thing about love is that it makes you blind to details. Love turns you into a generous interpreter. You start translating lies into misunderstandings, distance into exhaustion, secrets into surprises. I thought I knew her. I really did. We had a little house in the suburbs, 2 bedrooms and a backyard where I tried and failed to grow tomatoes. Every summer we had Taco Tuesdays and grocery runs on Sundays. She worked as the front desk lead at a dental clinic. Clean office, great lighting, and a boss with teeth too white to be trustworthy. His name was Dr. Lucian Denton. I always thought his name sounded like it belonged to a movie villain. He was one of those guys who smiled too much and said your name a little too often in conversation. He'd shake your hand and hold it just a beat longer than necessary. I met him twice, once at their office's holiday party, and once when I cracked a molar on a popcorn kernel and needed an emergency fix. I remember Kelly introducing me, "This is my husband Aaron," and Lucian grinning like he already knew something I didn't. He said, "You're a lucky man." While looking right at her, not at me. I laughed it off back then because that's what I did. I made excuses for things that made my stomach twist. Now I realize he wasn't hiding anything. He didn't have to. Predators don't hide when their prey is too busy blinking away the warning signs. The affair didn't start right away. I think it started in her mind first, the kind of fantasy that grows in quiet moments when you're unhappy and too polite to admit it. Maybe I missed when she started talking about work more than home, or when her phone became a permanent fixture in her hand, always tilted just so. I remember the first time she came home late claiming she had to stay and reorganize the patient schedule. It was 8:30 and she smelled like cologne that wasn't mine. She said she spilled a sample on herself while organizing the dental cabinet, and I believed her. I even asked if she wanted help getting the smell off, and she laughed and said, "No, I'm fine, babe." That was month 1. In hindsight, the moment that broke the spell for me wasn't dramatic, it was quiet. Kelly was on the couch texting while I was making dinner. I asked her what she wanted to watch later. She said, "Whatever you want," without looking up, and I don't know why, but something in her voice just felt empty. She used to joke about my taste in movies, used to pretend to hate them, and then snuggle closer. Halfway through that night, she barely ate and went to bed before the credits even rolled on the movie. I watched alone later that night. When I went to grab her laptop from the couch to plug it in, I saw the screen lit up. She hadn't closed the tab. It was an email thread. It was labeled personal. The sender was Lucian, and the first line I saw said, "Thinking about last night still makes my hands shake." I froze. I knew I should close it. I knew I should walk away, but I didn't. I read the whole thing, 6 emails back and forth, her telling him, "You're the only one who sees me," and him saying, "I dreamed of you in that black dress again, and can't wait to feel you again." The worst part wasn't even the content, it was the way they wrote to each other like they were in a movie. She called him "my sweet Doc," and he called her "kitten," like they were teenagers playing house. My hands were shaking. I closed the laptop gently. I didn't even confront her that night. I lay awake for hours next to her, wondering if I was the fool or if she was just a better liar than I'd ever imagined. The next morning, I kissed her forehead before she left for work, and she smiled like everything was fine. I watched her pull out of the driveway, and I sat at the table with my cold coffee and thought to myself, so this is what betrayal looks like, not with a bang, but with a fake smile and a travel mug in her hand. I wasn't angry, not yet. I was numb, but that was the day I stopped being the husband who waited patiently. I started being the man who took notes and made plans, and that's where it all began. The strange thing about betrayal is how it sharpens your senses. I started noticing everything, the way her voice changed when she answered his text, the sudden shift in her playlist to more moody acoustic songs, the careful effort she made with her makeup on Mondays. Even though she claimed they were the most boring days at the clinic, I didn't accuse her, not yet. I needed to be sure, and more than that, I needed to be ready. I wasn't going to be one of those guys who gets blindsided and makes a fool of himself. I wanted control, and that meant patience. I started small. I asked subtle questions about her day and kept mental notes. I kept track of her stories, looking for inconsistencies, and I found them, like when she said she stayed late because a shipment was delayed. But the calendar on the kitchen wall had no delivery scheduled that day, or when she said Lucian's wife had come to the clinic to drop off lunch, except I'd already Googled Lucian and found out he was divorced twice, no kids. I wasn't proud of how deep I dove, but when your life starts to crack, you'll dig through dirt just to feel stable again. I didn't want to hire a private investigator. It felt like admitting defeat, but I did start using tech to my advantage. I work in IT after all. I installed a tracking app on her phone, not one of those obvious ones, just a hidden location logger synced to a private server. I told myself it was for peace of mind, but I knew better. I also installed a small keylogger on the shared desktop computer, nothing invasive, just enough to catch keywords or email she forgot to erase, and sure enough, after a week the puzzle pieces started forming into a picture of two people who thought they were smarter than everyone else. One night while Kelly was in the shower, I glanced at her phone. It was face down on the nightstand with a new notification from someone saved as Dr. L. Tooth. Subtle, right? I opened the app logs the next morning and saw she had been at the same downtown hotel 3 separate times in 2 weeks, not for long, just an hour or two, and always right after work. I cross-checked with her supposed overtime shifts, and every single one lined up. I kept everything in a private folder on a hard drive backed up to cloud storage. I labeled it Project K, not because I thought it was clever, but because it kept me from labeling it what I really wanted to call it. I needed time, I needed a plan, and most of all, I needed to stay calm. Meanwhile, she became more careless, or maybe just more comfortable lying. Her texts became shorter, her attention thinner. One morning I handed her coffee, and she didn't even look at me, just said thanks and kept scrolling. I asked her how work was going, and she said, same old, same old. With a little shrug, I nodded and said, glad to hear it. And that was that. It's funny how silence can do more damage than screaming. I started preparing my exit plan, not emotionally, not yet, but practically. I checked our joint accounts, made notes of recurring transactions, double-checked our shared credit cards. She had one in her name that I paid off monthly without looking, but I looked now. Turns out our sweet dental assistant had been buying little gifts from boutique shops and charging them to our shared card twice. She'd paid for hotel reservations from the same spot I'd seen on the tracker. She really wasn't trying that hard to cover her tracks anymore. I started keeping receipts, both literal and emotional. When someone betrays you, it changes how you see the world, but it also changes how you see yourself. And I didn't like what I saw at first. I saw a guy who ignored his instincts, a guy who confused loyalty with denial, a guy who made dinner while his wife texted another man under the table. But the more I sat with it, the more I felt something else, something firmer. I wasn't a victim, I was a witness, and I was documenting everything. The real tipping point came one night around 9 p.m. Kelly had said she was working late doing chart audits, whatever that means. I watched her location ping from the clinic to that same hotel again. I waited until she got home. She came in humming, smiling, even she gave me a kiss on the cheek, said, thanks for being patient, babe, and went to shower. I just sat on the couch staring at the TV screen, which was off, thinking, I wonder what you'd do if you knew. I knew. The next morning I called in sick, first time in months. Then I spent the day building what I call my revenge kit. I started with the dental board. I created an anonymous email account, detailed several suspicious billing practices I'd noticed over the years, things Kelly had proudly mentioned over dinner. We squeeze in extra cleanings to hit quota, she once said with a wink. I attached screenshots of billing statements I'd photographed months earlier when she was too lazy to put them away, and I signed off with a concerned former patient. Then I contacted a friend of mine who works in corporate compliance, asked what it would take to flag a business for financial misconduct. Turns out not much if you have itemized records and anonymous tips, so I made sure they had both. Last but not least, I crafted a little gift package for Lucian's ex-wife, whom I'd found through a mutual connection on Facebook. Turns out she was more than happy to chat after I told her what I'd found. She had a lot to say about Lucian, and not much of it was flattering. She even offered to help take him down a notch. Her words, not mine. We agreed to keep each other updated. Then I printed out every email, every receipt, every message, and sealed them in an envelope marked, just in case. I hid it in the garage, taped to the back of the breaker panel where I knew she'd never look. Now all that was left was to wait. I didn't want to explode. I wanted to be surgical. I wanted them to feel everything slowly, because when someone plays dentist with your marriage, the least you can do is leave them with a few teeth missing from their perfect little world, and I wasn't even close to done. I didn't need a confrontation, I needed confirmation and leverage. Kelly gave me both without even trying. A few days after I'd set my trap, she came home beaming, said she got a compliment from a patient about her warm smile. I almost laughed. Lucian must have been running out of lines. Her mood had shifted lately, like she was floating above the ground, lighter, freer. Maybe that's what guilt looks like on someone who thinks they've gotten away with it. She made us dinner that night, spaghetti and a salad. Like nothing was wrong, and the truth is, if I didn't know what I knew, I might have believed her. But I'd already seen her hotel check-ins. I'd already read the way she signed her emails with "Can't wait to feel you again." And suddenly her homemade vinaigrette didn't taste so sweet. I started asking questions casually, little ones like, how's the new dental assistant working out? Or does Dr. Lucian still hum those old jazz tunes in the office? Harmless chatter just to see if her story matched mine. It didn't. One night she mentioned a staff meeting that didn't happen according to the clinic's website calendar. Another day, she claimed the office was slammed all afternoon, but her location tracker showed she'd been parked in the same spot near the same hotel for over 2 hours. I smiled and nodded like a man who was clueless. She had no idea I had the full map. I started dropping crumbs too, like leaving my laptop open to a fake job application for a clinic auditing firm, or letting her see me watching a video on whistleblower protection. Her eyes would flick to the screen, then quickly away like a mouse sniffing at cheese, but not quite ready to take the bait. I knew the real unraveling would come when Lucian's clinic started feeling the heat, and it did. One afternoon, she came home early, said the office had closed unexpectedly. System issues, she mumbled. I said, oh no, must be serious. And she just nodded, barely touching her food. The next day, she got quiet, no phone in hand, no humming, while she chopped vegetables, just silence. I checked the clinic's review page that night and saw a new one posted 2 hours earlier. Beware of billing fraud, shady management, stay far away. I didn't write it, but I knew who did. Someone else out there had a bone to pick with Lucian, and I was happy to let the fire spread. I hadn't said a single word to Kelly about what I knew, but the walls were starting to talk for me, and I was just getting started. By the end of that week, the air around Kelly had changed. She wasn't floating anymore. She was flinching. Little things started slipping. Her usual calm was replaced with fidgeting. She'd stir her coffee, but never drink it, scroll her phone, but not smile. She was quieter at dinner, barely made eye contact, not with me, and not even with the dog she'd once sworn was her baby before the baby. I asked how work was going, and she said, fine, but her voice cracked on the end, like it wasn't sure it belonged there. I checked Lucian's clinic listing again. A second review had popped up, this one claiming overbilling for procedures never performed and threatening legal action. The same day, the dental board's public complaint portal updated with a note, investigation opened. Then in dental care, that's when I knew we were officially in the second act of their little affair turned nightmare. Lucian had gone radio silent. No more emails, no more texts, not even a dental emoji. Kelly didn't say anything, but I could tell she noticed. She kept her phone face up now, like she wanted me to see. There was nothing to hide. Too late for that. I was already 10 steps ahead. I'd already updated my folder. I'd already recorded our conversations on the drive to the grocery store when she mentioned she might look for a new job, just in case things get weird at the office. I nodded slowly, probably a smart move. I said. She looked at me for a second longer than normal, like she wanted to ask something but didn't later. That night, I watched her step outside to make a phone call. She whispered fast, like someone begging for answers. I didn't need to hear the words. I already knew the conversation. She was trying to reach someone who wasn't picking up, someone who had no more use for her, someone who probably realized that dating your employee and getting caught is a quick way to lose your license. She came back and wiped her eyes, said it was allergies. I told her I'd pick up Claritin tomorrow and offered her tea. She said, thank you, and curled up next to me on the couch like nothing had changed, but everything had. The fantasy was starting to rot, and she was still pretending it smelled like roses. I almost felt sorry for her, almost. By the following Tuesday, Kelly was in free fall. She didn't say it out loud, but I can see it in the way she paced the kitchen like she forgot what a refrigerator was for. She got a call that morning, took it in the bedroom, door closed, voice hushed. When she came out, she looked like she'd aged 5 years. She said the clinic might shut down temporarily, but I knew what that meant. The investigation had teeth, and it was biting down. I asked if Lucian was okay. She paused too long, then said, he's on a short leave, right? That's one way to say hiding from the board while shredding records. She started checking her phone every 5 minutes like she expected someone to save her. No one did. At dinner, she barely ate. At night, she barely slept. She whispered in her sleep sometimes. I couldn't make out the words, but I didn't need to. The guilt was louder than anything. She mumbled. I stayed calm, kept doing the dishes, mowing the lawn, fixing the leaky faucet like a good husband who had no idea his wife had betrayed him. I even suggested we go away for the weekend, just the two of us. She nodded too quickly, like she wanted an escape, but wasn't sure if I meant it. I didn't. I had no intention of taking her anywhere. I just wanted to see how fast she'd say yes. She was unraveling one missed call at a time, one unanswered text at a time, and Lucian, the sweet doc with the soft hands and expensive smile, was nowhere to be found. I couldn't have written it better myself. She started watching me the way I used to watch her. There was a shift in her eyes, like she was trying to figure something out. She'd linger in doorways, glance at my laptop, hover near the couch like she expected to catch me doing something. I never gave her anything. I smiled. I cooked dinner. I folded the laundry like I had no clue she'd ever slipped. I became the perfect husband, the one she thought she left behind when she met her charming dentist, and now she didn't know what to do with me. One night, She asked, "How's work been lately?" I told her good, same stuff, different firewall. She nodded too fast, looked away, her phone buzzed. She didn't even check it, just silenced it, and kept staring at the table. The next morning she offered to pack my lunch. She hadn't done that in years. I let her, and when I got to work I threw it away unopened. It wasn't about the sandwich, it was about control. I knew she was trying to find her footing again, but the floor was already gone underneath her. She just didn't know it yet. I started leaving my phone face up, letting her see how little I cared. I left a printed spreadsheet on my desk labeled Joint Account Expenses Review. She saw it and asked what it was. I said, "Just budgeting stuff," and smiled. She smiled back, but it didn't reach her eyes. That night she cried in the shower, thought I didn't hear her. I did. The woman who cheated with her boss was suddenly scared of losing her backup plan. The problem was I wasn't standing behind her anymore. I was already gone, just taking my time on the way out. It happened on a Thursday, the kind of gray, quiet afternoon that feels like it's waiting for something. She was home early again, said the clinic was restructuring now, which I assumed meant Lucian was finally feeling the heat and turning over rocks to hide under. She looked tired, not just physically, but in that soul-deep way when you know something's coming and you can't stop it. She tried to smile when I walked and said she was thinking about making dinner early. I said, "Sure, sounds great," and dropped my bag by the door. I watched her fumble around the kitchen, opening drawers, forgetting what she was even looking for. She grabbed a bag of rice, then put it back, grabbed it again. I said, "You all right?" She blinked a few times and said, Yeah, I'm just tired." I nodded and leaned against the counter. I didn't say anything else for a minute, then asked, "Heard anything new about Lucian?" She flinched so slightly most people wouldn't notice, but I'd been watching her long enough to see the hesitation. She said, "No, not really. I think he's laying low until things settle down." I said, "Makes sense," and took a slow sip from my glass. Then I added, "Funny how fast things can fall apart, huh?" She froze, rice bag still in hand, like she forgot where she was. Then she turned and looked at me, really looked, and said, "Aaron, can I ask you something?" I told her, "Of course," and that's when she said it. "Do you know something?" It wasn't a defensive question, it was a soft one, a careful one, the kind people ask when they already know the answer. I didn't rush, I just met her eyes and said, "What do you think I know?" She set the rice down on the counter, leaned against the sink like her legs didn't want to hold her up anymore. "I don't know," she whispered. "Maybe nothing, maybe everything." The silence stretched long enough to hear the refrigerator hum. I finally said, "I know what matters," and her face fell, not in anger, but in surrender. She sank into one of the kitchen chairs, hands in her lap, staring at nothing. "How long?" she asked. "Long enough," I said. She nodded, once eyes glassy. "Why didn't you say anything?" I sat down across from her and folded my hands calmly. "Because I wanted to see who you'd become without me watching." She wiped at her cheek and laughed softly, but there wasn't any humor in it. "And?" she asked. I shrugged. "I saw a stranger." She looked like she was trying to breathe through concrete. I let the weight sit for a moment before I stood up, walked to the hallway closet, pulled out a plain manila envelope, and set it on the table. She didn't touch it, not right away. "What's this?" "Everything," I said. She opened it slowly, saw the photos, the emails, the hotel receipts, the appointment logs, the whole ugly truth in perfect print. Her face turned pale, her hands shook. "You've been collecting this?" "No," I said. "I've been preparing it." She looked up finally, tears clinging to the edge of her lashes. "For what?" I exhaled, slow and steady, "To leave with dignity." She tried to speak once, then again, but the words caught in her throat. "I didn't mean to fall into it, it just happened." I nodded. "That's what gravity does." She tried again. "It wasn't about you, it was about how I felt, and he made me feel seen." "And then?" I asked. She didn't answer. I walked over to the kitchen window, looked out at the backyard, the grill we used every summer, the little corner where I tried to grow tomatoes and always failed. "He saw you," I said quietly. "Then he used you and walked away." I turned back to her. "And I picked up the pieces you didn't even know were broken." She wiped her face fully, now crying, silent, but heavy. "Are you going to divorce me?" I didn't say yes, but I didn't say no either. I just said, "I already have a new bank account, the lawyer's on standby, you'll get your half of the house, and whatever else is fair, but I'm keeping my peace." She cried harder, then quieted, then said, "Do you still love me?" And for the first time I answered without hesitation, "I loved who you were, but I don't know who you are anymore." And with that I walked out of the kitchen, left her with the papers and the silence and the truth laid bare. I didn't slam the door, I didn't raise my voice, because sometimes the loudest ending is the one that doesn't make a sound. She didn't come out of the kitchen for an hour. I sat in the backyard. The air was cool, the kind that makes you breathe a little slower and feel everything just a little more. I watched the dog sniff at the grass, and I thought how strange it was to feel so light after carrying the truth for so long. Inside the house it was quiet, no footsteps, no calls, no excuses. The envelope had said it all. A day later, Kelly packed a suitcase, not all her things, just enough to make it clear she wasn't staying. I Didn't stop her. I didn't ask where she was going. She stood by the door for a long time like she wanted me to say something. She finally said, "I don't blame you." And I said, "Good." And that was it. No hugs, no promises, no replays, just goodbye like people who used to know each other well but don't anymore. She didn't slam the door either. I appreciated that. I waited until I heard her car pull away. Then I walked into the kitchen, tossed the envelope into the shredder, and let the past turn into paper. Ribbons. The next week was quiet. I slept better. The house felt empty, but not hollow. It felt cleared out, like I'd finally opened a window that had been stuck for years and let some fresh air in. Lucian's clinic officially closed on a Friday. I know because I checked and saw the notice on the front page of their site: temporarily closed due to regulatory concerns. Temporary in the way hurricanes are temporary. I didn't need to do anything else. His patients were canceling in droves. His staff was jumping ship, and the board wasn't answering his calls anymore. I'd sent everything anonymously. Of course, the billing inconsistencies, the ethics violations, the intimate relationship with an employee who was now unemployed herself. It was all being handled now by people in suits who didn't smile much. I never needed to shout. I just nudged the first domino and stepped back. Kelly called once. I didn't answer. She texted once too. Just said, "I'm sorry for everything." I read it, then deleted it, not out of anger, just finality. I didn't respond. What was left to say? She was sorry, but she wasn't mine anymore, and sorry doesn't rebuild what's already ash. I started running in the mornings. The cold air woke me up, and away coffee never did. I'd see my reflection in windows when I passed and think, this is the guy who walked through fire and didn't burn down with it. And that meant something. People at work noticed. I smiled more, said I looked lighter. One of them even asked if I'd gone on vacation. I said something like that, and left it at that. Sometimes healing doesn't look like a spa weekend. Sometimes it looks like sleeping through the night and not checking anyone's location history. Sometimes it looks like throwing out the extra toothbrush in the bathroom and realizing you don't miss it one bit by the time the leaves started changing. So had everything else. Lucian's name was officially listed on the state board's site under investigation for ethics violations and fraudulent billing. His clinic's phone was disconnected, his website redirected to a blank page with the words "closed until further notice." I almost felt bad for him. Almost. He disappeared as fast as he came into our lives, left no trace except the wreckage he and Kelly built together. She found out through a friend, someone who still worked part-time cleaning the office. They said Lucian was done. Not just the clinic, but the whole thing. He wasn't answering her texts either, not since the board showed up with questions and the insurance company started sniffing around. She sent me another message a few days later, this one longer. She said she felt lost, that she didn't know what she was thinking, that she missed us and hated what she'd done to our life together. I read the whole thing once, didn't reply. I didn't even feel tempted to. It was like reading a letter from someone who used to live in the house next door, someone I waved at in the mornings but never really knew that was Kelly now, someone who had been part of my story but wouldn't be part of my ending. I heard through a mutual friend she tried applying at another clinic, but word had gotten around nobody wants to hire the woman who blew up her job for a man who vanished and brought an audit team with him. Her resume didn't list Lucian's name anymore, just a vague front desk supervisor at a private practice. But people talk, and in that world, talk spreads faster than plaque. I didn't revel in her struggle. I just noted it like weather, like a forecast I'd already seen. I wasn't cruel. I just wasn't interested anymore. I had nothing left to say to her. She'd already heard my final word in silence. I changed the locks, not out of fear, just see Larity. I donated the old photos, the anniversary mugs, the throw blanket she bought on that weekend trip that now felt like someone else's memory. I made space, not just in the closet, but in my mind, and that's when I really felt it. Not anger, not victory, but peace, the kind that feels like waking up after a long storm, the kind that lets you breathe without thinking about it. I started seeing someone new, not serious, just coffee and long walks, someone kind, someone who laughed with her whole face. She didn't ask about my past, and I didn't volunteer it. We just existed together quietly, and for the first time in a long time, that was enough. I realized I didn't need closure from Kelly or answers from Lucian. They'd both already answered the only question that mattered. Who are you when you think no one's watching? And now they were both watching their lives fall apart, knowing I saw it all and walked away. I never imagined the end of my marriage would be so quiet. No screaming, no slammed doors, just the slow fade of someone who didn't know how to stay loyal and the man she left behind, choosing not to follow. Kelly moved in with a cousin a couple towns over. I know because a mutual friend mentioned it. She's looking for work still. Last I heard, no more front desk smiles, no more late nights with the doc who went missing when the lights came on. As for Lucian, the last update I saw was a court notice for a hearing date, something about insurance fraud and professional misconduct. I didn't read the details, didn't need to. I had my answers a long time ago, and they didn't change anything about my next step. I never chased karma, it found them on its own. Meanwhile, I kept Living small things at first, a better morning routine, learning to cook something besides spaghetti and grilled cheese, running until my lungs burned and my thoughts stopped echoing. I didn't try to fill the space Kelly left, I let it stay empty for a while. It taught me I was enough without it. I still think about it sometimes, not with pain, just perspective, not, why did this happen to me? But thank God it did, because the man I am now. He's sharper, more aware, more present. I look in the mirror, and I don't see the guy who missed the signs or waited too long to act. I see the guy who stood up without raising his voice, who fought back with truth and walked away clean. I smile more these days, not because life's perfect, but because it's mine again. I rebuilt my peace with quiet mornings and long walks, with choosing who I let in and what I let go of, and with remembering that sometimes losing someone who betrayed you is the best gift they'll ever give you. I don't need her to know how well I'm doing. I don't need Lucian to answer for what he did. I already got what I came for, not revenge, not justice, but closure, and that's priceless.